My guest I have known my entire life. He's a longtime family friend and making his first appearance on the pod. I'm excited to welcome the Pickle Man, Nick Wilson.
How you doing?
Thanks for coming on, buddy.
Pleasure to fit it into my jam-packed schedule.
I know you had Rogan earlier this morning and
Actually I had to cut him short for this.
Yeah, of course. It's like priorities, right?
Exactly. Said I gotta go to where the numbers are, Joe. You
gotta push your marketing as much as possible.
Exactly. So love your advertisements in the beginning, by the way. Those are classic.
Yeah, man. It's they're not really delivering in terms of financials, but I think
just a matter of time.
Yeah, just just keep delivering this consistent product, and eventually people are gonna have to start giving you money, right?
I mean, I've bought every single one you've recommended. So I mean, it's definitely working.
You're gonna like the some of the upcoming ones. They might involve a family Christmas puzzle and a fight amongst siblings. So you have to keep tuned for that. No spoiler.
Sounds really good.
Yeah.
Sounds really good.
So let's talk about how we know each other a little bit. It's funny because I was born in Burlington, Vermont, and I've lived in like 10 states now, but I knew Nick mostly in the earlier part of my life, up until I was like 10 years old. And you lived in the same neighborhood that we lived in Vermont, right? Like I can't even think of what was the area.
Yeah, it was Georgia, Vermont. I was in fourth grade, I believe, at the time that my family, my mother and my brother and I moved there. My mother got remarried, so we moved from a little town called Swanton to Georgia. And I can't remember if your mom and dad were already living there or if they moved there shortly after, but they were our next door neighbors.
Yeah.
My brother kind of got to know your
levels a little bit. Yeah. Jamie's not here to work it for me.
Where you don't have the whole crew with you. I mean, this is a big show.
I know. It's like the guys the last minute, they're like, you're gonna have to do it on your own. And I'm like, come on, man. You have no idea the
magnitude.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your parents lived in the house right next to us, and my brother kind of got to know your parents first. Your dad, he's always out doing projects and always doing home improvements. And he kind of befriended my brother, and my brother would, because my brother's about 4 years older than I am. So he would go out and help your dad. And, that's kind of how the relationship started. And then my brother got older, moved out of the house. And I used to be envious of the money he used to collect from your dad for like mowing the lawn. And so I kind of slid right into that position. And, that's how I got to know your family. And of course, your older brother, Kyle. And then I remember when you were born. So,
yeah, and you ended up living with us when we moved to Kentucky for a period of time, right?
Yeah. So after my freshman year of high school, after my freshman and sophomore years, I went and stayed with you guys in Kentucky. Part of it is, I think your parents just wanted some help around the house. And another big part of it was, we lived in a small town. There was a few other of us in the neighborhood, not a whole lot to do.
Yeah.
So when you have time to kill and nothing to do, that's kind of when you can get into a little trouble at that age. So I think my mother saw it as an opportunity to for me to have a little more supervision and a little more structure and just, less time to find negative things to get into in those summer months.
It's just weird because, like, looking back on it now, my parents, how old were they at the time? Like early 30s?
Yeah, I'd say right around 30. Cause I think, the first summer I was there, I was 15, and I believe your dad was 30.
Mm-hmm.
Cause we did a lot of stuff like, sports and stuff like that. So yeah, they're both right around 30. I think they had celebrated their 7-year anniversary the first summer I was there.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
You're a 15-year-old kid living with like a full family at the point. I mean, Austin was born in Louisville, and he won't do the podcast because he works at a bank, but he like he was down in Louisville too. So it's kind of a weird, like, or just a different environment in hindsight, right? Like it makes sense to me just how my parents are. Like they're very welcoming people, and like I don't,
Yep.
both of them, it's that hasn't really changed. Like they still on all their projects and stuff they're working on now in Vermont. My dad still got some younger guy to work with him, and he just loves that type of shit. But you full on state, like my mom always referred to you as my foster brother, and I and like the other kids that did this, I felt like it was a bit of a pat on her back, right? Like it was, I don't know if that would be the exact term that you would use, but um, she, I think she just saw you. It was a unique environment or unique relationship, right? Like you weren't a child, but you weren't like you were kind of like a nanny a little bit in some ways, right?
Very unmasculine way to describe it,
A
but we'll roll
manny,
with it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you were also like really close with my dad, and he gave you this name, the Pickle Man. Where did that come from?
I'm not even sure where he came up with it. He just started calling me that. And that was even when you guys were still in Vermont. It just kind of stuck. And I mean, that's my nickname in my middle school yearbook. I mean, everybody
Really?
called me the Pickle Man, and that came from your dad. Yeah.
Were
I
you
don't know where he
eating
derived
one?
it
Or
from. I think just because it rhymed. I don't know. I don't know. It's just whenever we went over there, because you remember there was a few of us in the neighborhood, myself, Phil, John, Randy, just seemed like randomly, your dad would be outside working and we would end up in his garage, just kind of shooting the breeze with him. And it was always, hey, what's going on, Pickle Man? And it just kind of stuck.
out of curiosity, what was he like at that point?
Your dad,
Yeah, it was before he had like blown up and everything, like it was him kind of establishing himself and had a young family. And I mean, I'm sure they were like the same, you know, shorts and t-shirts and everything, but
yeah, enough, always doing something. I mean, he was always doing something in that house. It was from one project to the next. Um, yeah, exactly the same guy he is now. Great sense of humor, very inviting. I mean, that's why we were kind of always kind of gravitating over there, is because he was always outside. So, we would just kind of go over there and see what he was doing, see what he was working on. And, um, just that's what I remember. It's funny how you say not established, because to us, he kind of was.
yeah.
Because I mean, it was a beautiful house there. It was like 2 stories and a basement. Had an in-ground swimming pool. We all used to like to go over there and swim.
Yeah.
Beautiful home, huge yard. But he was always doing something to make that house better. And I think people noticed that, and it was just, you respected him because it was just the guy was always doing something.
Oh,
And your
for
mom
sure.
had that little red station wagon. Um, she'll probably tell you stories of, she had the classic mom haircut at that time.
Oh
It was
yeah.
cut really short and it was like curled. Uh, she still hates it when I bring that up to her to this day, I believe. But she had like that classic mom, just station wagon haircut.
Oh, for sure. She's looking back on like photo albums. There's some pretty money. I mean, my dad's hair has been the same pretty much his entire life. But my mom has had many iterations. I'll have to send you a couple of them because there
Yeah,
were a few. Yeah.
she had the classic mom look back then. And yeah, you're right. I mean, your dad was shorts, t-shirt, shirt probably had a little paint or something on it from his projects,
Yeah.
sneakers, just, you know, in the garage doing something.
Yeah. Always working on something.
Yep.
And when you went down to uh, Louisville, because that my dad was at GE in Vermont and then he went to Louisville. So we moved. Like you full on stayed with us. You lived with us. You got into some competitive stuff with him, right?
Oh, it was all summer. I was there the summer after my freshman year and my sophomore year. But, your dad and I's friendship really kind of fostered that first summer. I was probably more I knew your mom better than your dad. I knew your dad just from, seeing him working on the projects, but we had never really interact. He probably had a closer relationship with my brother at that time because my brother was the one who was always helping him do the projects.
Yeah.
But that summer that kind of transitioned. And then I started helping him do the projects. And then we started competing in everything, basketball, obviously Monopoly. And it was funny, kind of the name we came up with. It was always him schooling me in something. Cause if I won, it was very rare. And it was maybe a short moment and then he'd win the next 10.
Oh yeah.
But he would refer to them as chapters. Chapter 1, Monopoly. Chapter 2, basketball. Chapter 3, whatever card game we were playing. And we were up in the 20s somewhere. I mean, the guy just schooled me in everything.
Did you guys
taking
play
me to school
too?
Oh, we bet. Yeah, we bet. And I lost most of the time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But we would, and he always gave me the appropriate disclosures. He would always advise me when it wasn't a good bet, when I shouldn't take it.
Of course. Yeah.
Sometimes I would
like
do it anyway.
Telling you before, just to make sure there's no hard feelings afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. I'd say the two big ones though were basketball and Monopoly. We played hundreds of games of Monopoly and we probably played 30 to 40 games of basketball that summer. We would play whenever we went to the Y, we'd play a 3-game series. So best of 3. I beat him one time and it was the last weekend I was there. The last time we played, I beat him. And to this day, I wonder if maybe he just let up a little bit for me because he felt maybe a little bit of him felt bad for taking me to school all summer.
He's a 30-year-old man playing against a 15-year-old kid. And it's in hindsight, like you were telling me once about like you've had these experiences with your brothers too, where like you're playing someone that's older than you and much better than you, and they just refuse to let up. Like he would play Madden with you and run out the clock, like take a knee and then make you sit until the end of the game. Like it's a different type of there's winning and then there's like, who are you doing that for? Hold on, just one.
Sure.
I just got a blasting light on my forehead from these. I'm trying to be a YouTube star, man. It's Rogan doesn't have this set up. Try.
Yeah, I will tell you a little funny backstory on the basketball though, because like you said, 30 and 15 or whatever it was. But I don't even know how the basketball started. We were just at the Y, and I think we just decided to get a basketball, and we were just kind of messing around. And when I saw your dad playing and warming up, I was thinking, I am going to destroy this guy. Like the way he was shooting and everything, I'm like, I am just going to work this guy. I'm like,
yeah.
So when we decided to play, I was just like, what is he thinking? Like, I'm just going to destroy him. And it's not what happened. Fundamentals, take me to the hole, that little shot from the foul line, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Oh, he changes the rules too. Like it's like he'll change the point structure or something, like everything's worth the same or whatever's going to give him. It's these throwaway lines right before the game start. Dramatically change the rules of the game. Like
the 2 points from the foul line.
Yeah.
Because that's what we played. And he killed me with that. He killed me with that 2-point foul line thing.
It's the worst was he was a dominant presence in the low post. Like he had a hook shot that as a 14-15-year-old kid, there was no physical way of blocking it given height constraints and stuff. So it'd just be like, no matter what, here's the cheat code. Like it's the equivalent of dunking on someone. and so he would let you get ahead a little bit and then come back and just dominate. Like
it's exactly like you said. If you got a little bit of an edge on him, it was like, okay, enough is enough. I'm gonna take him to the hole now and just punish you.
And the crazy thing is like he would never let up with any of us. Like, I don't know what the lesson was behind that, or if it was just for him, but like, I remember I played so many games of Monopoly with him too. And okay, I went and saw him over Thanksgiving. Like he's hardcore on chess right now. He's hardcore on he always plays Risk. Like he plays the computer game Risk, and he's boiled it down to where like he can beat it in 4 moves. Like in it's I was watching him play. It's like it's a weird, like it's almost like seeing someone play poker with like 6 tables at the same time online. Like, what is
Okay.
happening right now? But he's always been into these like strategy games. He destroyed everyone at Monopoly. Like, might be the best Monopoly player I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I always thought the game was a game of chance predominantly. But I did learn his secrets. He taught me.
Yeah.
Are you curious?
Well, I mean, I'm sure I know him too, but it's just been so, like, what I learned is I didn't even really know how to play Monopoly, because he knows every single rule. Like you said, you're playing with your friends or most family. It's just a game of chance. You land, you buy the hotels, whatever. I mean, he knows every single rule and actually, the strategy and everything behind playing. So
It's crazy.
it's like playing it. The game Monopoly is like a business playing with him.
It 100% is. And dude, I remember I was listening to Jeff Ma one time on a panel. He was the guy like behind 21 and like all that movie, the blackjack team for MIT. And he was just talking about games and like how whenever he looks at a game and trying to beat a game or like strategy, he goes to the rules straight. And it makes so much logical sense. But every instinct I have with a game is to be like, fuck the rules. I don't need to know. Like, let's just play the game. We'll figure it out as we
Exactly.
go. He learned the rules and then basically finds the weak spots in them. Like, I had never played Monopoly with anyone before that traded, like, or mortgaged property, or like,
Yeah.
I didn't know all those things. Like,
Didn't know you could even do that.
I've like, there's a system that he's taught me, and it was just over losing. I mean, I think I was probably like 15 years old, and I had just gotten my ass kicked by him for my entire life. And I finally asked him, like, what are you doing? Like, how is this like, how are I know you're smarter than me, but like, how is it that I never win a game? Like, can you tell me what it is? And there's a full, I think it's just over years of destroying you. He has implemented a system that I've never lost using this system before. It's incredible.
Most people, when they play, what do they want to do? They want to get Boardwalk and Park Place, and they want to get the green. I don't remember what the green ones are anymore. It's been so long since I played, but they always want to get the expensive properties. And
yeah,
he gets it with the middle of the road ones and just kills you.
Yeah, I don't want to give away the whole system because he's for sure going to listen to this and will get furious because it's years of work. But the one thing I think is fair to say, the variance comes into play the more people playing the game. So the game becomes more random as more people are playing it. And when there's a smaller number of people, when you look at like, this is how it was broken down to me. Every time somebody goes past go, you create $200 into the Monopoly economy.
Yeah.
So if that's only happening amongst 2 people, there's only so much cash coming into the game. So oxygen.
I was just going to say cash is like oxygen. I'm sure you've heard that.
Yeah. That's what's the like motor behind the game. So it's like just the breaking it down like that. I had never thought of it. I mean, I was like, what are you doing with the dice? You know, like that was always I thought he was like cheating with the dice or all that shit. But yeah, it's fun. But anyway, so you lived with us in Louisville. And And as you got older, we moved to New York and you would come and visit. But
Yeah, you're only a couple hours away there.
yeah, didn't you
Clifton Park.
didn't you come in the middle of the night and almost get shot?
I do recall that because at the time where I was working, I worked a night shift. And of course, this was before cell phones and text messages and all that. And I was kind of up in the air if I was coming or not.
Mhm.
And I believe your parents just kind of left it off like, hey, we're going to be out for the evening. Just the kids are going to be home. Just call. And I can't remember if it was you or Kyle who took the call. I want to say it was you, but I can't remember for sure. But anyway, you forgot to relay the message. So, and I had gotten there at this time of night before when I had visited from driving after work. So, I just did what I normally do. I parked, I went in the door that I knew to go in, and I go in and the alarm just is blaring. And, it's a pretty big house.
Oh yeah.
And so I mean, all I remember is your dad coming around the corner and he had a rifle. He had a rifle in his hand because he thought someone was breaking into the house because he assumed I wasn't coming because he never heard that I was. So yeah,
And
that was,
yeah.
I remember, I was like, it's me, it's Nick.
Well, I think at that house too, like there was something that had happened recently with like a guy just walking through the backyard in the middle of the night and like the floodlights came on. And I want to say he fired around or just said like, get out of my yard. Just weird stuff. And, it's when you have 3 young kids and
Absolutely.
it's a different dynamic. But so you came and visited us in New York when you were like in your 20s and right, like around that age, early
Yeah.
20s?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably between the age of 18 and 21 whenever you guys lived there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So it was right after I graduated high school, pretty much.
okay, we've talked about this before, and the reason why I want to have you on today, besides just to blow up, the internet and just get our numbers skyrocketing. I watched the Woodstock 99 documentary on HBO. It was I think Peace, Love, and something else. I can't remember. But Bill Simmons, like the Ringer, they produced this thing, Ringer Films. And I had seen the Woodstock 99 DVD, the documentary on it. Like I had watched it. I think I got it for the first time in like 2002. And I watched it, and I've seen the footage of Woodstock 99 so many times. It's been something I literally watch it every once in a while. Like the performances are incredible. It's like I had always had this weird connection with Woodstock 99. And I talked to you once and you were like, yeah, I went. And I had no idea. Like, how old were you? When did you get tickets? Like, what was the process like that for you?
I just laugh because the ticket part's a good story. I was 21. It was 1999. I don't remember the exact dates. I want to say I think it was like late June. But I mean, there was 2 carloads of us. We had 2 cars that drove there. And when we got there, the tickets, I think to purchase them ahead of time or there, it was something like $175 a piece, which was a good chunk and change, especially at that time, and especially for, when you're working and living week to week, like we all were at that time. So
who'd you go with?
I went with my good friend back then, Jim Racine. It was me, him, and we went with our friend Donald. Phil wasn't there. That was one of the ones he wasn't in on. And some other, honestly, I don't even remember everybody who went. There was probably like 8 of us total. I don't remember any. Donald's girlfriend and our friend Amy was there. If I tell you about the whole weekend, you'll understand why I don't remember everything. But,
for sure.
The car that I was in was I believe me, Jim, Donald and his girlfriend.
Mhm.
And I don't even know how we caught wind of this, but we didn't have tickets when we were going over there. Like I said, no cell phones or anything like that. So, you aren't going to pull up a barcode and scan it or anything like that. Literally, when you got a ticket, you got a like neon yellow wristband that you just put around your wrist.
Yeah.
When we got there, we pulled up to a Burger King that was maybe 40 yards from the gate where you walk in. And we bought fake yellow bracelets for $25 a piece and then walked right in with them.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
a guy was slinging fake Woodstock bracelets behind a Burger King that were going for 175 or 200 at the time for the whole weekend. And we got them for $25.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What was the gating process though? Because that was one of the things. There's a lot of things. I watched this documentary and there were some interesting parts about it, parts that I thought that were things that I didn't know about. But then there were also things that I was like, I would like someone's firsthand opinion on or experience. And I know everybody's different or whatever, but like, did they let you bring stuff through, food and water, or was there like, were they telling you can't bring shit in?
There was a parking area, and we had a lot of stuff that we had brought with us. I mean, we were literally partying and having fun on the way there, so we were already in a good way when we got there.
Yeah. I think you told me something about like how much had you pre-gamed before you got there?
Well, I mean,
and this is 21-year-old you with like a completely different lifestyle than now. So like,
oh yeah,
what like,
completely different.
You were a free soul at the time. So like context wise, this is not what you associate with now, but like what did that look like for you?
Well, I wasn't driving, but there was just basically a cooler in the car. We had probably 2 30-packs worth of beer. It was like a 2 or 3 hour drive. It felt like 5 minutes to me at the time because I wasn't driving. I was just having fun the entire time. I had cashed my paycheck. I think I had $400 in my pocket, half of which was going to go to the ticket. Luckily, only $25 did.
Yeah.
I just remember we parked. We got there. We parked. We bought our bands behind the Burger King. We parked. We got in with no problem. I mean, we just walked right in, and then we just started walking towards the stage. And like I said, we were all in a good way to begin with. We got there Friday, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock is what I recall. And when we first walked up to the main stage, because there were stages everywhere, and then there was one main stage.
I got the map up actually. I'm looking at.
Yeah.
So there was like an east and a west stage, right? Like you walked in through like past the camping, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then there was a west stage and an east stage with like villages in between. It was on a airport or
it was at Rome, New York. Yeah, old Air Force Base.
How big was it?
It was huge. And what I remember is how hot it was.
Yeah, that's what they kept saying, because it was cement everywhere.
Yes. And there was nowhere to get shade. I mean, there was literally nowhere to get shade. I think actually I remember one time on the second day at some point to take a nap. We were sleeping under, a jacked up vehicle just to get some shade.
Yeah, that's what they had in that documentary, of just people like doing anything they could. Did you guys bring camping gear or anything?
We didn't. We were so ill prepared. I mean, we were just going there to party and have fun.
So you had nothing like for 3 days?
The clothes on our back. Clothes on our back. Yeah, literally.
Was there any concern about that?
No, none. We were going there to party and have a good time. Worry about the rest later. No, we had no concern whatsoever. Our concern was getting there, and then, getting whatever we could get our hands on, essentially, to have a
Yeah.
good time.
What was that like? Like what was the introduction to that as you came in? Like, because you guys had been drinking the whole way there, like, and it's crazy hot. It's Friday. You got there at like 4 o'clock. I'm looking at the lineup, like East Stage, there was.
Let me see if I can tell you. I'll tell you who I saw, and if you can see what the order was, you can tell
Okay,
me if
yeah,
it's
I got
correct.
it. I got it right here.
But the main stage, when we got there, Offspring was like the first big show that I remember
Yeah,
playing when I
that's on
walked
the East
up.
Stage.
And then I think it was Korn,
Yep.
and then Bush.
Yep. That's
Yeah,
Friday night.
that was Friday night.
So what was that? Offspring's performance was unreal. And that band, like, it was kind of like this, like it represented that age group and that generation. Like, I mean, it was a great booking, but like Korn, what was that like? Because I've seen the videos of the crowd during Korn. Like, did you get up into the pit? Like, where were you? What was that dynamic? Because anybody watching, I'll try and put up some videos, but the audience at this particular show was, it was unlike anything I've ever seen before. It was insane. It was absolutely nuts. But like,
It was crazy. It was too many people in a small area, and if you broke it up into quadrants, if you're facing the stage, if you broke it like to into 4 quadrants, I would have been in the top right quadrant.
yeah,
And we just kind of, and what's funny is 2 of the people that I rode with, Jim and Donald, like when we got there and we made our way up to the stage and Offspring was playing, that's the last time I saw them
yeah.
for the entire weekend.
You didn't have
We got-
phones. You didn't.
There was none. Yeah, you had no way to, unless you found them, you had no way to get a hold of anybody. So
Was
it
there
was
like
basic.
a plan of let's meet back at the car afterwards or anything?
No, because that got derailed by whatever we were doing on the way there. There was no plan. There was
Yeah.
no plan whatsoever other than get to Woodstock and get to the stage.
Yeah.
Because
As you were
there was literally
walking
people I
to the
drove with that I
stage,
didn't
like,
see it. Yeah, I didn't
did
see
you-
some of the people I went with. I didn't see again until Monday morning. And I was wondering then if I was going to see them. I'm like, because it wasn't my vehicle. The guy who drove, Jim, it was his vehicle. I got there Friday. I didn't see Jim again until Monday morning. And there was like this worry of like, how am I going to get home? Like, what if we can't find each other? Because I had found his vehicle and we had left. That's the one smart thing we did. We left it unlocked. And apparently he had found it at some point too during the weekend, but we never found it at the same time. Like we were never there at the same time until we finally found each other.
Did you leave
Monday
a
morning
note for him or anything?
We had, I believe we did, but it was just what were we going to leave a note for? I mean, meet
So
me
what-
at the,
What did you like? God, there's a lot of questions, but like, there's a lot of intoxicants involved in all of this, right? Like, as you're walking to the stage, like going there, like what was the first introduction to like just substances? Because these festivals are riddled with like pretty much everything. I mean, do you remember anything in particular or?
yes. Yeah. There was pretty much everything you can imagine, from people having tanks doing nitrous balloons to mushrooms to acid, cocaine. That's what I recall. Just pretty much from the parking lot to getting to the stages, you could have pretty much gotten anything you wanted.
Yeah, just people walking up to you, or like, how was the market?
The market was, if you wanted to find something, you just pretty much had to make it known that you were trying to find something, and the market was open.
Oh, for sure. And
Yeah.
so like, I imagine there was some dabbling in different, types of things. And like, once you were in the pit, I mean, were you were in that quadrant that you were talking about? Like, what was it like in there? Could you really like listen to the music, or was it just like totally disorienting, or what was it for you personally at that show? Like,
For the most part, it was listening to the music. There was a brief time where it got absolutely insane and it got just so claustrophobic and just so many people jammed together that it was hard to breathe. And there was a point in time where I had to make my way, because when you first got there, it was complete euphoric. It's like, wow, we're here. Offspring was playing. Like you said, they were doing an amazing performance. When Korn came on, it got absolutely nuts. And the crowd, it just felt like it compressed. I mean, you literally couldn't move. At that point, it was almost like exhaustion. I was extremely thirsty. So I wanted to find some water. And
yeah.
it was all I could do to get out of the crowd, to get out of that front portion, just to get back to find some water.
You weren't even in the very front, right?
I was close. I wasn't in the very front row, but I mean, I was probably, I had a very good, I had a view of the stage. I was in that right front quadrant. So,
okay, so not back. I thought you said back.
No. If you're facing the stage, I was in the front right. So I was actually really close. I remember one of the things that really stuck out to me is I saw some kids there. And I do remember seeing one kid kind of like being helped out of the crowd. And he looked like he was unconscious. It looked like he was losing color. And I just remember thinking, like, what the heck is a kid doing? Not just at Woodstock, but in this part of in the area where I am. Just
for sure.
I was like, this is crazy. Didn't only saw a handful of kids, but I was just shocked to see any at that moment.
How was the actual, not to change the subject, because that is something I want to talk about, is like just the safety aspect. A bunch of people got hurt, some people died, like the heat exhaustion thing that you were talking about. But like, I just out of curiosity, like, how was it as an audience member? Was it awesome? Was it like too overwhelming to enjoy, or like what was it for you?
My experience for the most part was awesome. So when Korn came on, it got a little crazy. Trying to find beverages wasn't easy. What I recall is I didn't even know where to get a beverage. It didn't seem like there was like a concession stand. Like I recall finding like a person standing in front of a barrel, and there was a barrel full of ice with beverages in it, and the water was $5, which at that time that's a lot for water. But of course, I didn't care at that moment because I was dying of thirst. My $400 was gone by the end of the weekend, and the majority of it went to water. I survived on water and snow cones.
Really?
The snow cones were like, I don't know, because it was so hot, they just tasted like the greatest thing ever at that time. But I pretty much lived on water and snow cones that weekend.
Were you drinking the whole way through too, like beer, or could you just not afford beer?
Well, we had loaded up on a lot of beer, so we had a lot of beer in the vehicle, because we did find the vehicle that Friday night. It took us hours to find it because we were tore up when we got there and we had no idea where we had parked. So we spent about 3 or 4 hours Friday night. Didn't find it till the wee hours of the morning after the shows. Just trying to find our vehicle.
Where'd you sleep?
How in the vehicle when we found it.
Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, and we did have a tent, and we set up a tent. We did have a tent, so we just set up a tent right by the vehicle as well.
Was that outside of the gates?
From what this part, I don't exactly remember clearly. There was a place to park, and yeah, I mean, like there was a gate. As long as you had your bracelet, you could get in and out. And then there was there was multiple parking areas. And the tough part for us that first night is we had no idea what even parking area we were in. So
it's all new, and
Samir,
you got there at like 4:00, and it's so like 12 hours in, you're getting back to the car.
Yeah.
the next day you wake up, it's Saturday. I mean, the shows that night were pretty stacked, but like, who did you end up waking up for to go see?
Well, I mean, there was music playing all day, but the main shows we saw that night, and that's the night that a lot of people refer back to, I think, with the fires and all that stuff. But it was Limp Bizkit, Rage Against the Machine, which they were, to me, that was the show of Woodstock for me. They were incredible.
Yeah, I've watched that footage.
And then Metallica, and I was a huge Metallica fan. I mean, I've seen them 6-7 times. I've seen them, front row on the floor, 10 feet away from me. But Rage Against the Machine was so good. They were so good that night that literally I couldn't wait to see Metallica. But Metallica was kind of a downer. Yeah. After that, it was just kind of, Rage was so good. Metallica was just kind of,
That's a tough follow too. Like,
yeah,
the lineup, I mean, they shit all over this lineup in that documentary, that it was completely different than any other Woodstock would have been. And I guess like Creed came out with Robbie Krieger from the Doors at one point and like tried to give him some kind of homage because they didn't play in whenever, I don't know, and like I guess the crowd didn't respect it. But like at that age for you, like to see Rage Against the Machine in that environment, like what was that like? I mean, you're 21 years old. They were like
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, it was an incredible show. Awesome show. Like I mean, I wasn't even alive for the first Woodstock, so as far as there being a correlation, I don't think the correlation to the first Woodstock meant a lot to the people that were there. And a lot of it was because I remember the talk right after and the documentaries that came out shortly thereafter. And to me, from my vantage point, so much of it was blown out of proportion. They're like, oh my God, they were setting things on fire and it was chaos. It was out of control. Never once did I feel in any danger. Never once did I feel like, oh my God, this is insane. It was more like a bunch of people partying, wanting to have a bonfire, but they didn't have any logs. So, but it wasn't like violence and chaos the way they portrayed it. And they were trying to sell it, from what I've seen in the past, they were trying to sell it as, it was greed and they were price gouging and they were charging so much money for water and it was on an Air Force base and there was no shade. So people were rebelling. I didn't see it that way. It was just more like people were partying and having a good time.
Let me push back on that a little bit. Like, they tore down the wall that I mean, there's a video from that Woodstock 99 documentary where at one point, like there's this guy talking, he's like, we've got all these artists, we're doing great artwork and doing all this stuff. It's a great peaceful thing. And then like the next scene is just people screaming, pushing down the wall. And I mean, what did you think about that? Was like in those, were you partaking? Were you watching? Like what, or was it just happening somewhere outside of where you were at?
No, I mean, that stuff was going on. I didn't partake in any sort of destruction or anything like that, but I think it was few and far between.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the total number of people that was there. But I mean, it was a small number that was doing that kind of stuff.
But it made for a good story.
You get that many people together and you have, right. It was sensationalized, I guess is the way, because like I said, I didn't feel like there was ever any situation of mass chaos or violence, or never felt in a sense of danger, maybe because I'm 21 and carefree at the time, but it the way they portrayed it from my experience there, and this even going way back right after it happened. I mean, I remember talking to people at the time and just saying, look, this is not how it was. It's not the way they were saying.
Yeah. Because so in that documentary, a big angle that they took was um, safety and safety for women that were there, and how this lineup was like new metal. It was a bunch of bands that catered to 21-year-old white guys, and that it wasn't a safe place for women to be, a safe place for like younger people, like you said, that kid getting hurt, and um price gouging, all that shit. I mean, what do you think there was any truth to that, where like there was a ton of nudity going on, and like those mosh pits happening where people are grabbing at girls as they're going over the top for crowd surfing? Like, did you see anything that you, I know you were partying and like you weren't really there to like uh take note of that stuff, but were you seeing anything where you're like, oh man, I don't like, that's fucked up, or people were doing things that you didn't approve of?
There definitely was a lot of nudity. There was definitely a lot of people showing off their parts, male and female. Um, I do remember at one point seeing, a girl go up and getting grabbed, which I would say was inappropriate. Again, I didn't partake in any of that, and I didn't see a whole lot of that. It's just, it's one of those situations where it's kind of hard to blame. I don't know. I feel like they were kind of giving the music a bad rap, but when you get hundreds of thousands of people in a small area, and you have music and you have drugs and you have alcohol, you're going to have some things happen that shouldn't happen. You know,
But it
I
makes
don't
for a better story if it's Limp Bizkit rather than Cheryl Crow.
exactly. And I didn't see anything where they were inciting any of that. It was a giant party. And when you get that many people together, you have good apples, you have bad apples. The majority of what I saw was just overwhelmingly people just having fun.
Well, that was one of the things that dude, there were several things in this documentary where I was like, I don't know if they needed to take an angle on this, or like, I mean, you got to take a position, I guess, if you're going to make a movie about something, but like they villainized Fred Durst in the sense of like he was inciting the crowd, and he was encouraging the crowd to like rip shit up and burn shit up. And like, do you, from what you experience, I know this is just your point of view, but would you say that there were certain artists that were pushing the crowd to act more violently, or behave in a destructive way?
I didn't see any of that. I just think it was the environment itself. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of people, and you have alcohol and you have drugs. So I think regardless of who the artist is at that point, I mean, go to a bar any weekend, and you're going to see stuff that shouldn't happen. Now magnify those numbers and put six figures on it. I mean, it was the environment itself. Stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. So you saw Metallica. Did they play Nothing Else Matters?
I honestly can't remember, to tell you the truth.
Because I think at one point you told me you were at one of their shows and they played that and people started booing it.
The only show I remember where Metallica show where they got booed. Like I said, I've seen them 6 or 7 times, but I think it was the summer before I went and saw them somewhere in Massachusetts. And at that time, they were kind of having a crossroads, I think, with their career. A lot of people accused them of selling out, because if you look at their first albums like Kill 'Em All and Justice for All, Master of Puppets, Ride the Lightning, a lot of people think they kind of turned when they released the Black Album. And then they did Load and Reload. And I think 98 was the Reload tour. So you kind of had this mix of just fans now that just like the music, but then you kind of had those old school fans who thought they sold out.
Yeah.
So I remember some people at that 98 show like booing them and being like, what the heck is this? This is country music,
Yeah.
But it was more because they were they thought they had kind of betrayed their heavy metal roots, so to speak.
Dude, they had that. I watched their documentary on Netflix, and that is one of the weirdest fucking things I've ever watched, where they have a therapist come in with the band and they're all talking about their feelings, and like Hetfield goes and he goes to rehab and he comes back, but they can only practice for so many hours of the day. And you're like, what the fuck is, it was very strange. But if you haven't watched that, it's there's some unintentional comedy for sure in that.
Was that the Saint Anger one
Yeah,
when they were
yeah.
making that new album? Yeah, I did see that. It's been a long time ago, but I did see that. I remember Hetfield went to rehab, and I remember Lars in particular. It just didn't sit well with them, because it was
Yeah.
just, they had, like you said, they had all these constraints, and I haven't really followed them much since. I know they've released more
Just trying to
music, but
serve the music, Nick. They just need to
what's
serve the music. It's all about serving the music and selling really expensive artwork.
well, I think what people don't realize either with these guys is, you always hear that farewell tour, which there's never a farewell tour,
Oh yeah.
but these guys don't know anything else. So what
Yeah.
are they going to do if they stop music and they stop touring? That's why they do it till they're 70, because it's what they know.
Yeah, and it's the only way they can make money. So.
Right. Right.
So the next day, there was like, it looks like a lot of the bigger acts shifted stages. Where were you for Sunday?
From what I recall, the bigger act, and I could be wrong because like I said,
This
it's been so
lineup
long,
could
but
be wrong too. It
they
was
were
Willie
still on the
Nelson.
same stage. I don't recall seeing Willie. Sunday, I remember there was Creed, Jewel, Chili Peppers. Chili Peppers, I believe, closed it out.
Yeah,
There
because
was
like Megadeth was on the other stage. It looks like.
there was a lot of big name bands on smaller stages
Okay,
throughout the weekend.
so there were a bunch of stages.
I recall 4, but a couple of them were really small.
Okay, I'm just
Like
trying to
Tragically
think
Hip was there somewhere. I think they might have played on Friday. I can't remember, but Tragically Hip was there.
how long was the walk from like the main stage back to your car?
It was far. I mean, it took a good minute. I don't remember exactly, but it was a hike. It was a huge area that the place was in. Said it was on an old Air Force base. I just remember the place being massive. I remember it being hot. I got the worst sunburn of my life
Yeah, and you're a ginger,
that
so
weekend. Oh yeah. I mean, I had my whole face was sunburned. I got blisters because I had no sunscreen. Like I said, just came totally ill prepared.
yeah. But by the way, did you like? I mean, there had to have been dating opportunities that weekend, right?
Oh, after the shows were done, there were raves.
Yeah.
So once the shows were over, then it was rave time.
Like, did you sleep at all?
I did actually, because I remember like my sunburn. When I got the sunburn really bad was Saturday. So actually, a good part of the day, Sunday, I slept a good part of it. I remember soaking a shirt or something and just putting it on my face and going to sleep, because the only shows I saw Sunday were the end of the day shows, because I was at that point I was just spent and I was sunburnt, and I chose to sleep for a little while that day.
Were you eating? Like, was there food to eat, or like what? How did you? In hindsight, like, I'm older now. You're older than me. Like, going 3 days in that type of heat, that type of sun, like with no drugs or alcohol involved, that would be physically very hard on any person. But then you put that on top of it, like, what were you? I mean, there had to have been like days after this festival where you were just wrecked, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I there might have been a hot dog or two, because that's the one thing when you're walking from the stage areas back to the parking lot, there were people who brought stuff in. because there was just regular people who were grilling and selling stuff and selling waters, but they were doing the same price gouging as they were inside. So anyone in the parking lot that I came across was selling waters for $5 too. So I might have eaten a hot dog or two all weekend. It was primarily water and blue snow cones. That's what I lived on for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Were you just starving too? Or were you just too?
I was drained and I was in pain because the sunburn was so bad. So, I mean, I remember when I went back to work the following week and they were like, oh my God, what happened to you? Because my face was blistered and the blisters had popped, and it looked like I had fell asleep in the Sahara Desert. I mean, It was just, so it was probably a week at least of recovery, of just working, going home, crashing. And yeah, I mean, there was a recovery process, even being 21.
I can't believe like you spent 2 or 3 days with the amount, like when I watch any of these videos of like people at the raves and things like that, like one of those parties, someone would be like, that's the party that they would do for a year or something. Like it's insane. And it was just like 3 days of partying like that with crazy types of substances in physical conditions that were horrible for the human body. Like just heat, sun, crowded spaces, going like if you went to a concert like that, like how Korn was today, and you spent 3 hours doing that, like you would be fucked up for a week probably after that, right?
Yeah. First of all, I wouldn't even be there, but
Yeah.
it's just amazing what the body can go through and take, especially at that young age. Because now I couldn't even fathom, doing anything like that.
But that was just like that was the first show. Like it was just
that was Friday. Yeah, that
the
was
crazy
Friday.
thing is you didn't have like there was no plan. There was no
Nope.
This is what we're doing. Like at any point in the weekend were you kind of like fuck this, or like did you have regrets with it, or
Well, I mean, that point Sunday where I just wanted to sleep and I was in pain from the sunburn. Yeah, but then once you get to the stage and once you start having fun again, you kind of forget about everything again. And, overall, no, but there was a point Sunday where I was just kind of like, if someone would have said, hey, you ready to go now? I probably would have said, yeah, let's get the hell out of here.
were they drumming on Sunday still? Weren't a bunch, like there was a huge drum circle that was keeping everybody awake?
I don't recall that either. The place was huge. That's what you got to understand. I mean, the place was huge. Like you could have had your own experience in multiple different areas throughout the weekend. I mean, you could have never went to the main stage and still had a phenomenal experience because there was other stages and other things going on. There were multiple raves going on. There was people doing their own thing in the camping and parking area. So, I mean, it was a giant party. I mean, it was like a Grateful Dead party for 3 days.
Did it go by quick, or like
it
was just a blur?
Yeah, it was just a blur. It did go by really quick. I mean, it was like Monday morning was like a fog. I remember Monday morning kind of being an overcast. And, like I said, we were thinking, where the hell is everybody? Are we even going to be able to get home? Like, I mean, if you can think of, I mean, now it'd be simple. If you had your phone charged or whatever, you just send a text, but there was literally people, like I said, Jim, who I drove with there. I didn't see him again until Monday morning. And I didn't know if I was going to see him again. I don't even know if something had happened to him. It was crazy. It's crazy when you think about it, how ill prepared we were. But I think there was a lot of people like that there because it was a lot of young people just going to party.
Well, it was the norm too. I mean, I remember when I was like 13, 14, when I started to go to live concerts, like it would be, my mom would drop me off and be like, hey, we're going to be back here at midnight. Meet me at this spot at midnight. And there was no like way of like communicating up until that point. It was just like, hey, be at this place and we'll be here. But if you didn't have that conversation, like it's a complete clusterfuck.
Yeah. Now picture that. Yeah. Picture that with 3 or 4 of your good buddies where you're drinking the whole way and you show up, and yeah, that conversation doesn't take place. It's just ridiculous. Figure it out later.
So were you there for the Chili Peppers? Because that was the last show. How was it?
Chili Peppers put on a really good show. I remember Flea was buck naked. And there was a kind of a rumor going around through the weekend that there was going to be like a surprise show after the Chili Peppers, and kind of the name you kept hearing floating out there was Pearl Jam. Like they were just going to show up and put on a show. And what the surprise ended up being was like some sort of laser show. It was like some sort of Jimi Hendrix laser show or something like that. And that kind of pissed off a lot of people from what I remember, because they're like, really, this is the surprise? Like, I don't know. I think people had it built up in their head like Pearl Jam was going to come flying in on a helicopter or something and play after the Chili Peppers, but it never materialized.
Yeah. So they ended though. And like, what was the music just stops, and what do you do?
You just start walking away. And that's, I remember seeing a lot of fires at that time. I remember seeing people, that's where I remember most of the destruction happening, is when it ended.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's just people having, pent up for 3 days and, hey, there's no more show to watch, so let's go break something. But that's when I remember seeing, of the stuff that I did see, that's when I remember seeing most of it was after it had ended.
Were you ready for it to end, or were you kind of bummed at the end?
Both. I mean, that, like I said, earlier that day, I would have been ready to go home. But by that time, I was having fun again. And it was like, okay, let the good times roll.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Hey, can we extend it another day?
I'm sure a lot of people felt that way. Like it's just a weird cycle like that. So what was the process of like getting back to the car? Did you guys all eventually, how long were you there waiting for your buddies?
What I recall is, it's all such a blur, but I just remember we didn't know where Jim was. And somehow, I don't remember if there was a spare key in it or what. I don't even remember, but we got it started and we were actually driving around looking for him. And I remember we were kind of debating, like, because the first rule when you're lost is stay put, right?
Yeah.
Well, we hadn't seen him all weekend. So we just drove around. We're driving around. And all of a sudden there he is walking. And it was just like, I just remember that being the greatest feeling ever. Like, oh my God, we found him. Because we were thinking, okay, are we going to have to leave without him? Or are we going to have to say this person's missing? We don't know where he is.
Yeah. Were you worried about like him, like being dead, or like?
Yeah, I was starting to worry if he was okay. Because it was just like, there was so many bad things you could get into there if you wanted to, or who knows? What if you just end up in the wrong crowd, when there's that many people, and not seeing him and then not being able to find him that morning. It was definitely getting worried. I remember what a great feeling it was when we saw him walk. It was just such this feeling of relief. Like, okay, he's okay. We found him and now we can drive home.
Did you guys party on the way home?
No.
Like, did you end up getting food somewhere, or what'd you do?
I think we drove straight home. I honestly can't remember. I remember getting home, and I remember a friend of mine because at the time I had lived in the old house that was next to your old house. My mother lived in Florida and I stayed at my stepfather's house. And I remember them dropping me off there and one of my friends going out into the woods to take a piss. And I remember thinking, like, I remember telling them, like, you can come in the house and piss. And for whatever reason, they wanted to go in the woods and piss. So they did. And then they left. And I think my turnaround to work was like, I had to go to work like the next night or something. I was working at this time, I was working this 12-hour shifts. So it'd be like 3 days, 1 week, 4 days the next. Yeah. So like the next, and you'd go in at like 6 p.m. So I think I had to go in at 6 p.m. that night, if I recall. It was a very quick turn.
Like
It was a very
Monday, or Monday night.
from what I recall, yeah. I didn't have much time to sleep, maybe a handful of hours, and I had to go into work, and I did.
That must
And
have
it
been
was,
brutal.
yeah. But at that age, I had a few of those. So,
Oh yeah,
so it's, when looking back on it, you don't like, there's no way I could ever survive anything like that now. But it's just when you're young, man, you can abuse yourself. It's amazing what you can take.
it's crazy.
It is.
That story is wild. Overall, would you say like, do you regret doing it, or like if you could go back, would you have done it again? Like, are you glad you went to Woodstock 99?
I would say absolutely yes. Yeah. Because I just went there to have fun. I didn't do any of the, whatever they were highlighting. I just went there with friends to have fun. And I mean, look, it's 20 something years later, and here I am talking about it. So it's a memory. And I remember we used to joke around because there was a controversy, of would they ever do another Woodstock? And of course they didn't. And my buddy Donald, whenever I ran into him, we'd always talk about it. Like, you going to go to the next Woodstock? And I'd be like, yeah, I'm going because it was supposed to be every 5 years. I'm going in 2004. I'm going in 2009. I'm going in 2014. I'm going in 2019. That would always be the conversation. I'm going every year, man. I can't wait.
That's awesome. Well, if anybody has any questions or comments about this episode with Nick, please make sure to submit them on this episode on YouTube. If you've enjoyed this episode so far, hit the thumbs up icon and the notifications bell so you don't miss any of our content. Commenting, liking, and hitting the notifications bell helps us with the YouTube algorithm so that we can reach new listeners on the Discover page. I mean, Nick's got this massive audience that like, it's going to take care of itself on this particular episode, but like, when you guys do those things like commenting and liking, etc., it helps us. So we appreciate it. And
I just started tweeting, and I think I got 18 followers now.
Oh
so
man, blowing it up. Well, before you go, besides just the Twitter you talked about, is there anything you want to plug?
No, I mean, I'm not on social media. I'm not on Facebook or anything. Mainly because I've noticed ever since I got off that stuff, like, when I take a dump, I'm done in 5 minutes instead of 35 minutes from scrolling.
Yeah.
I am on Instagram because so I can keep a tab on my son's account. But the main reason I like Twitter is I like it for sports. I'm a Steelers fan, and I love like reading the tweets people, with the upset fans during the game. And it's a great place to interact. And, it's just, people get so fed up or it's crazy on Twitter. Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, dude, they call the Steelers fans Yinzers. So Yinzers tweet some good things on Sundays.
I might have to check that out. Well, dude, thanks for coming on. This was a lot of fun. We've been talking about this for a while, and thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to rate and review us. If you are watching us on YouTube, make sure to do those 3 things: the notifications bell, the thumbs up icon, and commenting. Just, ask a question for Nick and I'll follow up with him, or just, whatever you want to say about this episode. Talk trash. I don't know. Just, it helps us out. And as always, follow us on Instagram at FNF Pod for all our additional content. We're going to leave you with Jaga.
I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. I just make the waves, I don't write them. I can hear the lyrics in my spirit as I write them. Why you wanna walk and talk just like them? I can't get caught up in all the hype and the excitement. Welcome to my wave pool, my wave pool. Welcome to my wave pool, my wave pool.